The morning sky burned red over what used to be Seoul. Commander Lee Na-ri stood on the broken wall of their last fortress, watching enemy ships hover like dark clouds above the ruins. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires across the dead city. The air smelled of burned metal and worse things she tried not to think about. "Ma'am, we need to get you back inside," said Park Jin-ho, her second in command. His scarred face showed worry as he looked at the alien ships above them. Those plasma cannons could turn this whole wall into dust. Nari did not move. She had seen too much death in the last 5 years to fear it now. The Vorthak had come from the stars like a plague, destroying everything humans had built. They burned cities, turned oceans to steam, and hunted people like animals. Now only 50,000 humans were left alive on the whole planet. "Let them see me," she said quietly. "Let them know we are still here." Behind the wall, in deep tunnels carved from rock, the last of humanity waited. Old people held crying babies. Soldiers cleaned weapons they knew could not hurt the enemy. Scientists worked on projects that would never be finished. They all looked to Nari for hope she did not have. The Vorthak were not like the monsters from old movies. They were smart, organized, and had technology that made human weapons look like stone tools. Their ships could cross space faster than light. Their armor could stop any bullet. Their plasma weapons could melt through steel like butter. Park Jin-ho handed her a datapad. "The night raid brought back some interesting things. Kim Sora wants to show you something important." Nari took the pad and walked down the metal stairs into the underground base. Soldiers saluted as she passed. Some were barely adults, like young Choi Min-soo, who had lost his family in the first attack on Busan. Others were veterans who had fought since the beginning. All of them trusted her to find a way to win an impossible war. The science lab was deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. Kim So-ra looked up from her computer screens when Nari entered. The young physicist had dark circles under her eyes from working day and night. "Commander, we found something in the alien computers we captured," So-ra said, her voice excited. "The Vorthak are not just random killers. They have rules, laws, traditions. They follow something called the Conquest Protocol." Nari sat down at the table covered with alien devices. "What does that mean for us?" "It means they think like soldiers, not butchers," So-ra explained. "They respect strength and honor. They have ranks and ceremonies. Look at this." She pointed to symbols on the screen. "This is their command structure. Very organized, very formal." Park Jin-ho frowned. "So what? They still want to kill us all." "But maybe not the way we thought," So-ra said. "According to their files, they have conquered 47 other species. But each time they followed specific rules. They always gave the enemy a chance to surrender with honor." Nari felt something stir in her chest. Not hope exactly, but an idea. "They never gave us that chance." "Because we never asked for it the right way," So-ra said. "We fought like humans fight, with tricks and guerrilla attacks and desperate last stands. But the Vorthak respect direct challenges between leaders. Outside, the ground shook as alien weapons hit their outer defenses. Soon the walls would fall and the tunnels would be flooded with deadly gas. Nari had maybe 6 hours before the end came. "Show me everything about their command structure," she ordered. For the next 3 hours, Nari studied the alien files. The Vorthak were led by war chiefs who earned their positions through combat and wisdom. Their current leader was called War Prime Thektar, an ancient warrior who had led the conquest of dozens of worlds. He commanded from a massive ship that orbited Earth like a metal moon. "He has been alive for over 800 years, So-ra said. "The files say he has never lost a personal challenge." "And he has never met a human," Nari said quietly. Park Jin-ho shook his head. "You are not thinking what I think you are thinking." But Nari was already standing up. The idea was crazy, but crazy was all they had left. "Get me a communication channel to their flagship. I want to speak to their leader." "Ma'am, that is suicide," Park Jin-ho said. "No," Nari replied. "Staying here and waiting to die is suicide. This might be something else." Young Choi Min-soo ran into the lab. "Commander, the north wall is falling. They are bringing up the big guns." Nari could hear the explosions getting closer. Soon this room would be filled with alien soldiers. But first, she had to try something that had never been done before. "So, Ra, can you patch me through to their command ship?" "Yes, but they will. Probably just laugh before they kill us." "Let them laugh," Nari said. "But they will hear what I have to say first." The communication system crackled to life. Alien voices spoke in their clicking musical language. Then a translation computer made the words understandable. "This is War Prime Thektar of the Third Fleet. Why do you interrupt the final battle? Human insect?" Nari took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few words. "I am Commander Lee Nari of the Human Defense Force. I request parley under your own conquest protocol." Silence filled the room. Even the explosions outside seemed to stop. Then the alien voice came back, different now. Interested. "You know, our protocols? How is this possible?" "We are not the animals you think we are," Nari said. "We are warriors just like you, and I challenge your right to destroy us without honor." More silence. Park Jin-ho grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done years ago," Nari whispered. Finally, Thektar spoke again. "You request single combat? You would face me yourself?" Nari closed her eyes. "I request a meeting, leader to leader. You and me talking about the fate of my species. And if I refuse? Then you destroy the last humans like you destroyed the others. But you will always wonder what we might have offered, what we might have taught you, what we might have become if you had shown the honor your people claim to value." The longest silence yet. Nari could hear her heart beating. Outside, the walls were crumbling. In a few minutes, it would not matter what the alien leader decided. "Very well, Commander Lee Nari," came the voice from space. "You will come to my ship. Alone. Unarmed. If you try any human tricks, your people die in pain." "I understand," Nari said. "You have 1 hour to reach the transport coordinates. Do not disappoint me." The communication ended. The room was quiet, except for the distant sound of battle. Park Jin-ho stared at her. "You just volunteered to walk into the mouth of a dragon." Nari picked up her uniform jacket. "No," she said. "I just bought humanity one more chance." As she walked toward the exit, she wondered if she had just saved her people or doomed them. But for the first time in 5 years, they had a chance that did not involve everyone dying in the next few hours. That had to be worth something. The transport beam felt like being torn apart and put back together. Nari materialized on the deck of the alien ship, her knees weak and her stomach churning. She had expected to die during transport, but the Vorthak technology worked perfectly. Around her, the ship hummed with power that could level mountains. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with inner light. Strange symbols moved across the surfaces like living things. The air tasted of metal and ozone. Everything was huge, built for creatures much larger than humans. 6 Vorthak warriors surrounded her. Up close, they were terrifying. Each stood, 9 feet tall on 4 legs that ended in sharp claws. Their bodies were covered in natural armor that looked like purple crystal. 4 arms moved independently, and their heads had too many eyes that glowed like golden fire. "Do not move, human," one of them said through a translation device. "War Prime Thektar will see you now." They marched her through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Other aliens stopped to stare as she passed. Some pointed with their extra arms and made clicking sounds. Nari tried to look confident, but inside she felt like a mouse walking into a den of lions. The command center was enormous. Screens showed views of Earth from space, covered in smoke and fire. Other displays tracked the movement of Vorthak ships as they finished destroying the last human cities. In the center of it all sat a throne made from some kind of black metal. War Prime Thektar was the largest Vorthak she had seen. Ancient scars covered his crystal armor, and his golden eyes held intelligence and cruelty in equal measure. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. "So this is a human leader," he said, studying her like a bug under glass. "Smaller than I expected, weaker. How did such frail creatures fight us for 5 years?" "We are stronger than we look," Nari said, trying to keep her voice steady. Thektar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Strength? You hide in holes like insects. You use poison and tricks instead of honest combat. Where is the strength in that?" Nari looked around the command center. Dozens of Vorthak officers watched her, waiting to see how their leader would crush this tiny human. She had one chance to say something that would keep her alive long enough to make her proposal. "The strength is in surviving when everyone said we would die in days," she said. "The strength is in making you fight for 5 years instead of 5 minutes. The strength is in standing here talking to you when I should be dead." The alien leader leaned forward on his throne. "You think surviving makes you strong? We have conquered 47 species. All of them survived for a while." "How many of them made you work this hard?" Nari asked. For a moment, Thektar said, "Nothing." Then he gestured with one of his 4 arms. "Sub-Commander Vexhai, show our guest the records." A smaller Vorthak stepped forward. This one had silver markings on his armor and moved with quick, nervous energy. "War Prime, is it wise to share our data with the enemy?" "She will be dead soon," Thektar said. "What harm can it do?" The screens around the room changed to show lists of conquered worlds. Nari saw dates, population numbers, and something called resistance duration. Most worlds had fallen in days or weeks. A few had lasted months. Earth showed 5 years, 2 months, and counting. "Impressive for insects," Vexhai said with obvious contempt. "But insects still die when stepped on." Nari studied the data, her mind racing. "Your longest previous war was 8 months, against the Kelhari Republic. What happened to them?" "They fought well," Thektar admitted. "We allowed their leaders to join our forces as subordinates. They earned that honor through courage." "And the others?" "Exterminated. They showed no worth." Nari felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's air conditioning. 45 entire species wiped out because they did not impress their conquerors, but 2 had survived by proving themselves worthy. Maybe there was a pattern here. "You follow rules," she said. "Protocols. You do not just kill randomly." "We are not savages," Thektar said, sounding offended. "We follow the code of conquest, handed down by our ancestors. The strong lead, the worthy serve, the weak perish. This is the natural order." "Then, judge us by your own rules," Nari said. "We have fought longer than almost anyone. We have shown courage. We have earned the right to be heard." Vexhai made an angry clicking sound. "Humans are not worthy of anything but death. They are parasites, vermin, a plague on this world." "Is that what you said about the Kelhari?" Nari asked. Thektar raised one massive hand, and Vexhai fell, silent. "You speak of earning rights, human. But what do you offer? Your species is defeated. Your cities are ash. What could you possibly give us that we cannot simply take?" This was the moment Nari had been preparing for. Everything depended on what she said next. "Information about a threat that will destroy you just like you destroyed us." The command center went quiet except for the hum of machines. Every alien eye focused on her. "Explain." Thektar commanded. Nari took a deep breath. We have deep space sensors that your ships do not. We have been watching the edge of the galaxy for years, looking for new worlds to escape to. What we found instead was something coming toward us, something that devours entire solar systems. Impossible, HFY said. Our scouts patrol the galactic rim. Nothing moves there without our knowledge. Your scouts are looking for ships and planets, Nari said. This is different. It eats matter itself, converts it to energy, and grows larger. We call it the Void Swarm. Thektar leaned back in his throne. Show me this data. I cannot. It is stored in our computers, protected by quantum encryption. Only I know the access codes, and I will only share them if you agree to hear my full proposal. You bargain from a position of complete weakness, the alien leader pointed out. I could torture the information from you. You could try, Nari agreed, but torture makes people say what they think you want to hear, not what is true. And if I am lying, you lose nothing by listening. If I am telling the truth, and you ignore, me, your entire civilization dies. HFY stepped closer to the throne. War Prime, this is obviously a desperate trick. Humans are known for their deceptions. Yes, Thektar said slowly. They are, which makes them either very dangerous or very useful. He looked directly at Nari. You have 5 minutes to convince me your Void Swarm exists. If you fail, you die slowly. Nari nodded. 3 months ago, our deep space array detected massive energy signatures from the direction of the Andromeda Galaxy. The signals matched no known natural phenomenon. When we focused our telescopes on the source, we found entire star systems going dark in a specific pattern. She paused to let that sink in. 2 months ago, we detected the same signatures from systems in our own galaxy. The outer rim worlds have been going silent, one by one. Your own communication logs should show similar gaps if you check. Thektar gestured to one of his officers, who began working at a control panel. After a moment, the alien looked up with surprise. War Prime, she is correct. 17 outer rim systems have stopped transmitting in the last 60 days. We assumed it was equipment failure. Or, Nari said quietly, something ate them. The alien leader studied her for a long moment. Around the room, his officers waited for orders. Finally, he spoke. Subcommander HFY, prepare a secure chamber for our guest. She will remain alive until we verify her claims. And if the claims prove true? HFY asked. Thektar's golden eyes gleamed. Then we will hear what this small human proposes to do about a threat that could destroy us all. As guards led her away, Nari allowed herself one small smile. She was still alive. Humanity had gained a few more hours, and for the first time in 5 years, the Vorthak were afraid of something other than themselves. Now came the hard part. The holding cell was larger than Nari's entire command center back on Earth. She sat on what passed for a chair, waiting while Vorthak technicians verified her claims about the Void Swarm. Through the transparent wall, she could see aliens hurrying, past with urgent purpose. Hours passed. Finally, the door opened, and Thektar entered, followed by another Vorthak she had not seen before. This one was even older than the War Prime, with deep cracks in his crystal armor and eyes that held ancient wisdom. I am War Priest Korthon, the newcomer said, keeper of the old knowledge. Your claims have proven disturbing. Thektar settled his massive bulk on a seat designed for his species. Our deep space monitors confirm energy signatures matching your data. Something is indeed consuming star systems at the galaxy's edge. More than that, Korthon added. I have consulted the ancient archives. There are records of similar events from the distant past. Entire sectors of space that simply went dark with no explanation. Nari felt a mix of triumph and terror. She had been right, but being right about the end of the galaxy was not exactly good news. So you believe me? We believe your observations are accurate, Tektar said carefully. But what solution do you propose? If this void swarm can destroy our fleets, what hope do humans offer? This was the moment Nari had been planning for. Separately, we both die. Your strength and our creativity together might find a way to survive. HFY, who had been standing silently by the door, made a disgusted sound. Humans have no strength. They cower and hide and play tricks. What could they possibly contribute? We see problems differently than you do, Nari said. You fight with honor and strength and ancient traditions. That makes you powerful, but it also makes you predictable. The Void Swarm will adapt to your tactics because they follow patterns. And humans do not follow patterns? Korthun asked. We cannot afford to. We are weak compared to most other species, so we had to become unpredictable to survive. We call it thinking outside the box. Tektar leaned forward. Explain this concept. Nari thought for a moment. Your people conquered Earth with overwhelming force, correct? Direct assault, superior weapons, traditional military tactics, very effective against normal enemies. Yes. But humans kept fighting for 5 years using methods that made no military sense. Guerrilla attacks that accomplished nothing except wasting your time. Suicide missions that damaged nothing important. Hiding in tunnels when we should have surrendered. Precisely why your species deserves extinction, HFY said. Or, Nari continued, why we might be the only species that can help you defeat an enemy that adapts to logical tactics. Korthun made a thoughtful clicking sound. The ancient records speak of previous attempts to fight the darkness. All used conventional warfare. All failed. Because the swarm learns, Nari said. It studies how you fight and develops counters. But how do you counter something that makes no sense? How do you adapt to pure chaos? Tektar was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the ship hummed with power as it orbited the dying Earth. Finally, he spoke. What exactly are you proposing, human? A temporary alliance. Your ships, our strategy, your weapons, our unpredictability. We share everything we know about the Void Swarm, and you stop killing my people long enough to see if we can find a solution together. Impossible. HFY said immediately. The Code of Conquest forbids alliances with inferior species. The code also requires adaptation to unprecedented threats, Korthun said mildly. This situation has no precedent. Tektar stood and began pacing, his 4 legs clicking on the metal floor. Even if I agreed, which I have not, what guarantee do I have that humans will not betray us? Your reputation for deception is well established. What would be the point? Nari asked. If the Void Swarm destroys the galaxy, we all die anyway. Betraying you would be suicide. Humans have chosen suicide many times during this war. To protect our families and our freedom. If you are fighting beside us instead of against us, those motivations disappear. HFY stepped forward. War Prime, this is madness. We are on the verge of total victory. Why complicate matters with an alliance we do not need? Because victory over humans means nothing if we all die next year, Tektar said sharply. Unless you have a solution to this Void Swarm that does not require human assistance? The subcommander fell silent. Korthun accessed a data pad with one of his 4 hands. I have been reviewing the tactical records from your war with humanity. Their methods were indeed chaotic, but they achieved results far beyond what their capabilities should have allowed. Lucky accidents, HFY muttered. Luck repeated consistently becomes skill, the war priest replied. Perhaps there is method to their madness. Nari seized on the opening. There is. We call it adaptive strategy. Instead of planning everything in advance, we react to circumstances as they develop. We try multiple approaches simultaneously and expand on what works. That sounds like having no plan at all, Tektar said. Sometimes no plan is the best plan. If your enemy cannot predict your next move because you do not know it yourself, how can they prepare defenses? The alien leader returned to his seat. You ask me to ally with a species we have been destroying for 5 years. You ask me to trust creatures known for deception and chaos. You ask me to violate traditions that have guided us for millennia. Yes, Nari said simply. In exchange for what? The possibility that human unpredictability might confuse an enemy we do not fully understand? In exchange for a chance, maybe the only chance either of our species will ever have. Thektar looked at Korthun. What do the ancient texts say about survival versus honor? That honor without survival is meaningless, the war priest replied. But survival without honor is not truly living. And what honor is there in extinction? Nari asked. Another long silence filled the chamber. Nari could hear her own heartbeat as she waited for the decision that would determine the fate of 2 civilizations. Finally, Thektar spoke. I will agree to a limited trial. A small number of your people will work with our scientists to analyze this void swarm threat. If they prove useful, we will consider expanding the arrangement. And the bombardment of Earth stops? Nari asked. Suspended, not ended. Your people remain our prisoners, confined to specific areas. Any attempt at treachery will result in immediate extermination. It was not everything Nari had hoped for, but it was infinitely better than the total extinction that had seemed certain a few hours ago. I accept your terms. Vexhai looked furious. War Prime, this sets a dangerous precedent. Other species will expect similar treatment. Other species have not faced the void swarm, Thektar replied. If we survive this threat, we can reconsider our policies. If we do not survive, policies become irrelevant. As guards prepared to escort Nari to new quarters, she allowed herself to feel cautiously optimistic. Humanity had been given a reprieve, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to prove their worth as something other than victims. The real work was just beginning. The Joint Research Station orbited Earth like a metal moon, hastily constructed from human and Vorthak technology. Nari watched through the observation deck as transport ships carried human survivors up from the planet's surface. After 5 years of hiding underground, seeing the sky again brought tears to many eyes. The integration is proceeding better than expected, Park Jin-ho reported as he joined her at the viewing port. Though we have had some incidents. What kind of incidents? Yesterday, Lee Hyun-woo punched a Vorthak technician for calling humans useful pets. The alien was actually trying to pay him a compliment. Nari sighed. And the Vorthak response? They were impressed. Apparently, standing up to larger opponents is something they respect. Hyun-woo got promoted to senior engineer. Through the speakers, she could hear the sounds of the main research lab. Human voices mixed with Vorthak clicking and the hum of machines that blended technology from both species. It should have been impossible, but somehow it was working. Dr. Yoon Tae-hyun had been the first to volunteer for the joint research team. The elderly exobiologist had spent his career studying alien life forms in theory, never dreaming he would work alongside actual aliens to save the galaxy. Commander, Yoon's voice came through the communication system. We have something you need to see. Nari and Park Jin-ho made their way to the central laboratory. The space was huge, designed to accommodate both human-sized equipment and massive Vorthak interfaces. Scientists from both species worked side by side, though not always comfortably. Kim So-ra looked up from a bank of computers. We have been analyzing the void swarm movement patterns with science primary Kethra. The results are disturbing. The Vorthak scientist was smaller than the warriors, but still twice the size of any human. Her crystal armor was blue instead of purple, marking her as a research caste member. When she spoke, her translation device gave her a surprisingly gentle voice. The entities move with purpose, Kethra explained. Not random consumption, but planned expansion. They appear to be seeking something specific. What kind of something? Nari asked. Yoon activated a holographic display showing the galaxy's edge. Red dots marked systems that had gone dark. Watch the pattern. The display animated, showing the progression of darkness across space. Nari expected to see random spreading, but instead the swarm moved in deliberate arcs, sometimes bypassing closer systems to hit more distant targets. They are avoiding certain types of stars, Sora said. Pulsars, neutron stars, systems with high radiation levels. They prefer worlds with complex elements and stable energy sources. Living worlds, Park Jin-ho said grimly. More than that, Kethra added. Analysis of the consumed systems shows they prioritized planets with technological signatures. Advanced civilizations were hit first. A chill ran down Nari's spine. They are hunting intelligent life. It appears so, but why? Yoon asked. If they simply wanted matter for replication, any planet would do. This suggests a deeper purpose. Young Lee Hyun-woo approached their group, his engineering uniform still stained from working on alien machinery. Science primary, Kethra. The quantum resonance scanner is ready for testing. The Vorthak scientist made an approving sound. Excellent. This human has adapted to our technology with remarkable speed. Not adapted, Hyun-woo corrected. Improved. Your quantum processors are powerful but inefficient. I added some human chaos mathematics to increase processing speed by 30%. Kethra's 4 eyes widened in what Nari had learned was surprise. Chaos mathematics? This is not a recognized field of study. Humans developed it to model unpredictable systems, Sora explained. Weather patterns, stock markets, biological, evolution. Things that follow rules but still behave randomly. How is this possible? Kethra asked. Mathematics should be logical and precise. It is, Hyun-woo said. But chaos math is about finding patterns in things that seem random. Very useful for understanding complex systems. Nari could see the alien scientist struggling with the concept. Vorthak thinking was apparently very linear and ordered. The idea of mathematical chaos was as foreign to them as their 4-armed physiology was to humans. Perhaps we could demonstrate, she suggested. Hyun-woo grinned and activated a computer simulation. The screen showed a simple pendulum swinging back and forth, perfectly predictable. Then he added a second pendulum attached to the first. Watch what happens when we introduce a tiny change to the starting position. The double pendulum began moving in wild, seemingly random patterns. Even though the physics were simple, the motion became impossible to predict after just a few seconds. This is chaos, Hyun-woo explained. Tiny changes create massive differences in outcome. Very small events can have enormous consequences. Kethra stared at the display. And you can use mathematics to understand this? To a degree. We cannot predict exactly what will happen, but we can understand the underlying patterns and find order within the chaos. Fascinating, the alien scientist said. Our mathematics assumes that sufficient data allows perfect prediction. Your approach accepts uncertainty as a fundamental property of complex systems, which might be exactly what we need to fight the void swarm, Nari realized. If they learn by studying predictable patterns, chaos mathematics might let us create strategies they cannot anticipate. Park Jin-ho looked skeptical. You want to fight an intergalactic threat with random math? Not random, Sora corrected. Chaotic. There is a difference. Chaos has underlying order, but that order cannot be predicted in advance. An alarm suddenly echoed through the station. Red lights flashed as the communication system activated. All. Personnel to battle stations, came the voice of the station commander. We have detected multiple void swarm entities entering the outer system. Nari felt her blood freeze. How many? 3 confirmed contacts moving toward the inner planets. At high speed. Estimated arrival time, 6 hours. Through the observation windows, she could see Vorthak warships moving into defensive positions. Their weapons were charging, energy crackling along crystalline hull projections. But she remembered what the ancient records had said about conventional weapons being ineffective. Kethra, do we have any data on swarm defensive capabilities? Limited information from the Outer Rim attacks. They appear to adapt to weapons fire within minutes of first contact. Energy weapons become useless first, then projectile weapons, then even nuclear devices. They learn how to defend against anything we throw at them, Park Jin-ho said. Then, we need to throw something they cannot learn from, Nari said. Something chaotic enough that it works differently every time. Hyunwoo was already moving toward the computers. I have an idea. It is completely insane, but it might work. What kind of idea? Nari asked. The young engineer's eyes gleamed with the kind of excitement that usually preceded either brilliant breakthroughs or spectacular disasters. We build weapons that do not know what they are going to do until they actually do it. Kethra made a confused clicking sound. That is impossible. Weapons must be designed with specific purposes. Not if we use chaos mathematics to randomize their effects at the moment of firing, Hyunwoo explained. The same weapon could act like a plasma cannon, an ion beam, or a gravitational disruptor, depending on quantum fluctuations we measure in real time. That makes no sense, Park Jin-ho said. Exactly, Nari replied, beginning to understand. And if it makes no sense to us, maybe it will not make sense to the swarm either. Outside, alien warships prepared for a battle that could determine the fate of two civilizations. Inside the research station, humans and Vorthak worked together to create weapons based on uncertainty itself. The Void Swarm was coming, and they were about to discover what happened when unstoppable force met chaotic resistance. The first Void Swarm entity came out of hyperspace like a living nightmare. Captain Han Ye-jin watched through her cockpit display as the thing unfolded in space, revealing its true size. What had looked like a small ship was actually a biomechanical. Construct the size of a moon. All units, this is Observation Flight Leader. She radioed to her mixed squadron of human and Vorthak fighters. Maintain safe distance and collect data. Do not engage until ordered. The entity was unlike anything in the databases. Part machine, part organism, it pulsed with dark energy that bent light around its edges. Tentacle-like appendages reached out from its core, each one large enough to wrap around a battleship. Observer Prime Zethka to human pilot, came a voice through the translation system. Are your sensors detecting the energy patterns? Yejin checked her instruments. Confirmed. The thing is scanning everything within 10 light minutes. It is mapping our defensive positions. Then it knows we are here. Oh, it definitely knows we are here. As if responding to her words, the entity began moving toward the inner system. It did not accelerate gradually like a normal ship. Instead, it simply started moving at tremendous speed, reality warping around it like water around a stone. Flight. Leader to command, Yejin broadcast. The first entity is heading straight for Earth, speed increasing beyond measurement capability. Back on the research station, Nari watched the tactical displays with growing horror. The Void Swarm probe was not just fast, it was learning. Every second it observed the Vorthak fleet positions, its movement became more efficient. War Prime Thektar requests permission to engage, reported a Vorthak communications officer. Tell him to wait, Nari said. Let us see what happens when conventional weapons fail. Thektar's voice boomed through the command center. Human commander, my ships are ready to fight. Why do we delay? Because we need to see how it adapts to your weapons, Nari explained. If we attack with chaos weapons first, we lose the element of surprise. And if we wait too long, it reaches Earth and devours 50,000 humans. It will not attack. Earth yet? Said Science Primary Kethra from her workstation. The probe's behavior suggests it is gathering intelligence for a larger assault. It wants to understand our capabilities before committing to battle. How can you be certain? Thektar demanded. Because that is what I would do, Nari said quietly. Scout the enemy, test their defenses, then bring overwhelming force to finish the job. Young Choi Minsu, now serving as a communications specialist, looked up from his console. The entity has stopped accelerating. It is maintaining position. Just outside weapons range. On the main display, the Void Swarm probe hung motionless in space, its biomechanical surface rippling with energy patterns. Smaller objects began separating from its bulk, each one the size of a fighter craft. It is deploying scouts, Observer Prime Zethka reported from his fighter. 12 small entities spreading out in formation. Now we see what happens when they meet resistance, Nari said. All ships, prepare to engage scouts only. Use standard weapons protocols. The Vorthak fleet opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending streams of superheated energy toward the approaching scouts. The first volley hit perfectly, engulfing 3 of the smaller entities in brilliant explosions. Direct hits, Yejin reported. 3 targets destroyed. But even as she spoke, the remaining scouts began to change. Their biomechanical hulls shifted and flowed, growing new armor plates that gleamed with an energy-absorbing shimmer. The survivors are adapting, Kethra observed. Their defensive capabilities are increasing in real time. The Vorthak fired again, this time with concentrated ion beams instead of plasma. 2 more scouts died, but the rest continued to evolve. By the 3rd volley, the weapons were having no effect at all. Conventional weapons are now useless, Thektar reported grimly. The entities have developed complete immunity. How long did that take? Nari asked. 4 minutes. 37 seconds, Minsu replied. Faster than predicted, Kethra said. At this rate of adaptation, even nuclear weapons will be ineffective within minutes of first use. The surviving scouts suddenly accelerated toward the Vorthak fleet. Instead of attacking, they began circling the larger ships, their sensors probing every detail of alien technology. They are studying us, Zethka warned. Learning our ship designs, weapon systems, everything. Pull back all units, Nari ordered. Do not let them scan our chaos weapons. As the fleet retreated, the scouts returned to their parent entity. The massive probe absorbed them back into its bulk, processing their gathered intelligence. It knows everything about standard Vorthak military technology now, Kethra said. When the main force arrives, they will be prepared for anything we have used before. But not for anything we have never used before, Nari said. Hyunwoo, are the chaos weapons ready? The young engineer looked up from his jury-rigged control systems. As ready as weapons based on uncertainty can be. We have installed the quantum randomizers on 12 fighter craft. Each weapon will generate a different effect every time it fires. What kinds of effects? Thektar asked. We honestly do not know, Hyunwoo admitted. The system randomly selects from 47 different energy types and 17 delivery methods. Even I cannot predict what will happen when someone pulls the trigger. Vexhai, who had been observing the battle preparations, made a disgusted sound. This is madness. Weapons should be reliable and predictable. Against a normal enemy, yes, Nari agreed. But this enemy adapts to predictable weapons. So we made weapons that are not predictable. What if they do not work at all? Vexhai demanded. Then we are no worse off than we are now, Nari replied. But if they do work, we might buy enough time to develop a real solution. The probe was moving again, heading deeper into the system. Behind it, space began to distort as 2 more entities emerged from hyperspace. These were even larger than the first, their biomechanical surfaces crawling with weapon systems and sensor arrays. The main force is arriving, Yejin reported. 3 entities total, all converging on Earth's orbital space. Time to test our chaos theory, Nari said. All fighters equipped with randomized weapons move to intercept. Remember, you do not know what your weapons will do until you fire them. That is the point. Flight leader to all pilots, Yejin broadcast. We are about to engage an enemy that adapts to everything it encounters. Our weapons change their effects randomly, so they cannot adapt to what we do not know ourselves. Stay flexible, expect the unexpected, and remember that confusion is our greatest advantage. As the mixed squadron of human and Vorthak fighters moved toward the approaching nightmare, Nari found herself praying to gods she did not believe in. They were about to discover whether chaos mathematics could defeat an enemy that had destroyed countless civilizations. The fate of the galaxy might depend on weapons that did not know what they were supposed to do. Somehow, that felt very human. The ancient archives of Kethmaran stretched deep into the planet's crust, carved from living crystal that pulsed with stored memories. Nari followed archive keeper Nethvol through corridors that had been old when humans were still discovering fire. "These records are forbidden to outsiders," the ancient Vorthak said, his voice crackling with age. "Only the approaching doom of all life justifies their revelation." Behind them walked a small group of researchers. Specialist O Dongjun, whose linguistic skills had proven essential for translating ancient Vorthak texts. Dr. Yoon Tai-hyun, who studied the biological aspects of the Void Swarm, and War Priest Korthun, who served as their guide through religious and historical materials. The chaos weapons had worked, but only temporarily. For 6 precious hours, the randomized effects had confused the Void Swarm entities enough to drive them back, but even chaos could be analyzed given enough data, and the swarm was learning to adapt to unpredictability itself. "The deepest archives are ahead," Nethvol said, stopping before a wall of crystal that seemed to absorb light. "Beyond this point lie truths that the High Council has hidden for 1,000 years." The wall dissolved at his touch, revealing a chamber filled with memory crystals that contained the darkest secrets of Vorthak history. In the center sat a crystalline table, displaying a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, with vast, dark regions marking areas of ancient destruction. "Behold the truth," Nethvol said. "The Vorthak did not begin as conquerors. We began as refugees." The map changed, showing star systems being consumed by spreading darkness. Nari recognized the pattern immediately. It was identical to the current. Void Swarm advanced, but this map showed events from thousands of years ago. "The swarm came to our original homeworld when our civilization was young," the archive keeper continued. "We had achieved spaceflight, but were not yet warriors. When the darkness began consuming nearby systems, we tried diplomacy first." Dr. Yoon leaned forward. "You made contact with them?" "Briefly. What we learned changed everything." Nethvol activated another crystal, and alien voices filled the chamber, speaking in the clicking language of ancient Vorthak. O Dongjun listened intently, his portable computer analyzing the linguistic patterns. "They are describing first contact with entities that called themselves the collective consciousness of the consumed." "The Void Swarm is not destroying civilizations," Korthun said grimly. "It is absorbing them. Every intelligent being it consumes becomes part of a vast hive mind." Nari felt ice form in her stomach. "The people are not dying. They are being converted." "Worse than converted," Nethvol said. "Integrated. Their minds become part of something larger, but their individual consciousness is preserved as components. They experience the consumption of their own species from the perspective of their destroyer." The chamber fell silent, except for the humming of ancient memory crystals. Finally, Yoon spoke. "How many species have been absorbed?" "According to our records, at least 300 civilizations over the past 10,000 years. Billions of individual minds, all trapped within the collective consciousness, forced to participate in the destruction of others." O Dongjun was still working with the translation systems. "There is more here. The original Vorthak tried to fight back, but their weapons were ineffective, so they developed a different strategy. We became nomads, Nethvol said. Our entire species abandoned our homeworld and fled across the galaxy. We developed our conquest culture not from aggression but from desperation. We needed resources from other worlds to stay ahead of the swarm. And the species you conquered? Nari asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Prepared as soldiers in our great army, every world we took, every population we absorbed, made us stronger for the final battle we knew would come. Corthon activated another set of crystals, showing massive fleet movements across millennia. The 47 species we conquered were not victims. They were recruits. Their strongest warriors joined our ranks willingly once they understood the true threat. What about the ones who were exterminated? Cowards who refused to fight, Nethvol said harshly. Species that chose individual survival over galactic preservation. Their weakness would have contaminated our forces. Nari studied the ancient maps, seeing the scope of Vorthak preparations. Thousands of years of planning, entire civilizations molded into weapons, all building toward a confrontation that was finally arriving. So Earth was meant to be another recruitment drive, she said. The last one, Corthon confirmed. Our scouts identified humans as having unusual tactical adaptability. We plan to test your species in warfare, then offer the survivors a place in our forces. Instead, we offered ourselves, Nari realized. We volunteered before you could finish the recruitment process, which accelerated our timeline considerably, Nethvol said. But perhaps that is for the best. The swarm has found us sooner than expected. Oh, Dongjun looked up from his translation work, his face pale. There is something else here. A potential weakness in the collective consciousness. Explain, Nari ordered. The absorbed civilizations retain their individual awareness within the hive mind. They experience constant psychological torment, being forced to participate in actions they find morally repugnant. According to these records, the psychological stress creates instabilities. What kind of instabilities? Yoon asked. Memory conflicts. Identity confusion. In some cases, absorbed individuals have managed to influence collective decisions by introducing psychological chaos into the hive mind. Nethvol made an excited clicking sound. Yes, the records speak of instances where the swarm retreated unexpectedly or made tactical errors that cost them entire fleets. Internal sabotage, Nari said. The absorbed minds fighting back from within. But the effects were temporary, Corthon warned. The collective always adapted, finding ways to suppress individual consciousness more effectively. Unless... Oh, Dongjun said slowly, we could introduce something the collective has never encountered before. Something that would create permanent instability in the hive mind. Nari felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. Human chaos mathematics. We could create a consciousness virus that spreads psychological unpredictability through the collective. Theoretically, possible, Yoon agreed. But it would require direct interface with the collective consciousness. Someone would have to allow themselves to be absorbed while carrying the virus. A suicide mission, Corthon said grimly. Not suicide, Nari corrected. Sacrifice. The absorbed person would become part of the collective, but they would carry something that could free all the other trapped minds. Nethvol accessed one final set of crystals. The ancient records suggest the collective has a central node, a core consciousness that coordinates all absorbed minds. If the virus could reach that node, it could shatter the entire hive mind, Nari finished. Free hundreds of absorbed civilizations, and destroy the swarm's ability to coordinate attacks. But how do we create such a virus? Yoon asked. And how do we ensure it reaches the central node? Nari looked around the chamber at the assembled researchers and warriors. They had uncovered the truth about their enemy and identified a potential weakness. Now they needed to develop a weapon unlike anything ever created. We need to get back to the research station, she said. We have a consciousness virus to build as they prepared to leave the ancient archives. Nari wondered if they had found hope or simply a more elaborate way to fail. But at least now they knew what they were really fighting. The Void Swarm was not just an enemy. It was a prison containing the tortured souls of 300 extinct civilizations, and if their plan worked, it might soon become their salvation. The combined fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation. Admiral Jang Ki-tae stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching Vorthak dreadnoughts take position alongside rebuilt Earth vessels. 6 months of desperate preparation had led to this moment. "Final fleet count, Admiral," reported Communications Officer Min Su. 47 Vorthak capital ships, 12 human carriers, and 300 mixed fighter squadrons. Total crew, 200,000 beings, all to deliver 2 people to the heart of hell, Kai-tae muttered. Through the viewports, he could see the edge of the galaxy where space itself seemed to end. Beyond that boundary, the Void Swarm waited with forces that dwarfed their combined fleet. Reconnaissance drones had counted over 1,000 major entities, each one capable of destroying entire star systems. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Fleet Marshal Rethgar," Min Su announced. The main screen showed the ancient Vorthak commander, his crystalline armor bearing the scars of countless battles. "Human Admiral, my scouts report swarm movement in Sector 7. They are massing for a final assault. Estimated time until they reach inhabited systems?" Ki-tae asked. 36 hours, perhaps less if they achieve breakthrough velocity. Ki-tae nodded grimly. Their window was closing fast. "And the consciousness virus?" Dr. Kim So-ra reports final testing is complete. The psychological chaos weapon is ready for deployment. In the research bay, So-ra worked alongside Science Primary, Kethra, on the strangest weapon ever conceived. It looked like nothing more than a small crystal storage device, but contained within was a digital representation of human chaos mathematics designed to spread confusion through the collective consciousness. The virus operates on psychological principles rather than technological ones, So-ra explained to Nari and Thektar. It introduces contradictory thought patterns that should cascade through the hive mind, creating increasing instability. "Will it work?" Thektar asked bluntly. "We believe so. But we cannot test it without exposing ourselves to collective absorption, which would defeat the purpose." Nari studied the tiny device that might save 2 civilizations. "And this needs to be delivered directly to the central node?" "Correct. The virus must reach the core consciousness that coordinates all absorbed minds. Peripheral contact will have limited effect, which means someone has to carry it into the heart of the swarm and allow themselves to be absorbed," Thektar said. The War Prime had volunteered for the mission, arguing that his centuries of combat experience made him the logical choice. Nari had argued equally forcefully that human unpredictability was essential for the virus to work properly. The debate had continued for weeks. "There is another consideration," Kethra said quietly. "The ancient record suggests that successful delivery requires both logical structure and chaotic thinking. Neither Vorthak order nor human chaos alone may be sufficient." Nari and Thektar looked at each other, understanding dawning between them. "Both of us," Nari said. "We both have to carry the virus." "Impossible," Sub-Commander Vexhai protested from across the room. "The stealth ship can only carry one person through swarm defenses." "Then we build a smaller ship," Thektar said. "Or we find another way." Young Li Hyun-woo looked up from his engineering station. "Actually, I have been working on something. A two-person stealth pod based on void swarm biotechnology. We reverse-engineered it from captured materials." He activated a holographic display showing a sleek vessel that looked more grown than built. "It mimics swarm energy signatures perfectly. The entities should read it as one of their own scouts." "Should," Nari repeated. "What are the odds of detection?" "Honestly, no idea. This is completely experimental technology based on incomplete data about an enemy we barely understand." "So typical human engineering," Vexhai said, with what might have been grudging respect. Fleet Marshal Rethgar's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "All commanders to battle stations. Long-range sensors detect massive swarm movement. The final assault has begun. Kite activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, prepare for Operation Last Hope. We hold this line until the insertion team reaches their target." The next few hours were a blur of final preparations. Nari and Thektar suited up in hybrid armor that combined human flexibility with Vorthak durability. The consciousness virus was integrated into neural interfaces that would download it directly into their minds upon absorption. "Remember," Sora said as she made final adjustments to the interfaces, "the virus needs time to propagate through the collective. You may experience absorption for several minutes before the chaos patterns take effect." "What will that feel like?" Nari asked. "According to the ancient records, like having your mind torn apart and rebuilt as part of something vast and alien. Most absorbed beings go insane within seconds." "Wonderful," Thektar said dryly. "And if the virus fails? Then you spend eternity as conscious components in a hive mind dedicated to consuming all life in the galaxy." Nari sealed her helmet and checked the pod systems one final time. Through the viewports, she could see space lighting up with weapon fire as the two fleets engaged each other. Vorthak dreadnoughts traded plasma volleys with biomechanical nightmares, while human fighters darted between massive entities like insects attacking dragons. "Ready?" Thektar asked as he settled into the pod's other seat. "No," Nari replied honestly. "But that has never stopped us before." The stealth pod launched from the flagship's belly, immediately disappearing from all sensors as its mimetic. Systems activated. Nari watched the massive battle fade behind them as they slipped through swarm perimeter defenses. "Detection?" she asked. "None so far. The biomimicry is working perfectly." Ahead of them, space was filled with horrors beyond imagination. Void swarm entities moved in perfect coordination, their biomechanical forms pulsing with dark energy. Some were larger than moons, others small and swift like metallic sharks. All of them radiated an alien intelligence that made Nari's skin crawl. "Central node dead ahead," Thektar reported. "Distance, 50,000 kilometers and closing," the Collective's core consciousness was a sphere of twisted metal and organic matter the size of a small planet. Energy patterns flowed across its surface like the neural activity of a vast brain. Smaller entities orbited it like antibodies protecting a vital organ. "This is it," Nari said. "Once we dock with that thing, there is no coming back. The mission succeeds or we all die anyway," Thektar replied. "I can think of worse ways to spend eternity than trying to free 300 enslaved civilizations." The pod's docking systems activated automatically as they approached the central node. Biomechanical tendrils reached out to embrace their small ship, drawing them into the alien structure's depths. "Absorption beginning," Thektar announced as their pod was pulled into a chamber filled with neural interfaces. "Are you ready to become the enemy?" Nari felt alien probes penetrating her mind as the consciousness virus prepared to activate. Ready as anyone can be for voluntary damnation. The last thing she saw before the collective absorbed her thoughts was the distant flash of weapon fire as two civilizations fought for the right to continue existing. Then her mind became part of something vast, terrible, and about to experience chaos on a scale it had never imagined. Nari's consciousness exploded across 1,000,000 minds as the collective absorbed her thoughts. She experienced the terror of absorption from countless perspectives simultaneously. The last moments of civilizations spanning millennia, all preserved, in perfect, horrifying detail. Through billions of eyes, she saw the galaxy as the swarm knew it. Stars were just fuel sources. Planets were storage containers for organic matter. Living beings were simply processing units to be integrated into the vast neural network that stretched across space. But she was not alone in the darkness. Thektar's consciousness merged with hers, his ordered thinking providing stability as the chaos virus began to propagate through their shared mental link. "Can you hear me?" His thoughts reached her across the howling void of absorbed minds. "I hear everything," she replied. "Every scream, every prayer, every final thought of 300 extinct species." The consciousness virus activated, spreading chaos mathematics through the rigid neural pathways of the collective. At first, the effect was subtle. Minor calculation, errors, slight delays in coordination. But chaos had a way of growing exponentially. Through the collective's senses, Nari felt the central intelligence becoming aware of the intrusion. It was vast beyond comprehension. A composite mind formed from the absorbed consciousness of entire civilizations. When it focused its attention on the virus, reality itself seemed to bend under the weight of its regard. "What have you done?" The central intelligence spoke directly into their minds, its voice containing the harmonized screams of billions. "What contamination do you bring to perfection?" "We bring choice," Nari replied, pushing chaos patterns deeper into the hive minds. "Structure. We bring uncertainty. We bring the possibility that you might be wrong." The virus was spreading faster now, chaos mathematics creating contradictory thought loops throughout the collective consciousness. Absorbed minds that had been forced into perfect harmony for millennia suddenly began experiencing conflicting impulses. "Stop this," the central intelligence demanded. You will destroy the unity we have spent eons creating. Good, Thektar responded, his warrior spirit blazing even within the alien hive mind. Unity through force is not strength. It is weakness disguised as order. Through the collective's external sensors, they could see the effects beginning to manifest in physical space. Void swarm entities were hesitating in their attacks, receiving contradictory orders from the destabilizing command structure. Some ships broke formation entirely, their biological components responding to chaotic neural signals. But the Central Intelligence was fighting back, trying to isolate and contain the spreading virus. It began partitioning sections of the collective consciousness, cutting off infected areas like a surgeon removing diseased tissue. You cannot stop what has already begun, Nari said, feeling her individual consciousness starting to fragment under the intelligence's assault. Chaos cannot be contained by logic alone. Watch me, the Central Intelligence replied. But as it focused more resources on containing the virus, other absorbed minds began to reassert themselves. Civilizations that had been silent for millennia suddenly found their voices again, their individual personalities surfacing within the hive mind. "We remember," spoke the voice of the Kelhari, the warrior race that had impressed the Vorthak centuries ago. "We remember who we were before you took us. We remember our children," added the Zephyrians, a peaceful species absorbed during the swarm's early expansion. "We remember the songs you silenced. We remember freedom," declared 100 other voices, each representing a different extinct civilization. The chaos virus had done more than introduce uncertainty into the collective consciousness. It had awakened the suppressed personalities of every absorbed mind, creating a psychological revolution within the hive mind itself. "This is impossible," the Central Intelligence raged. "Individual consciousness is inefficient. Unity is perfection." "No," Nari said, her human stubbornness shining through even as her mind fragmented. "Diversity is strength. Unity without choice is just another form of death." Through the collective sensors, they watched the void swarm fleet falling into complete disarray. Entities that had moved with perfect coordination for millennia were now operating under contradictory impulses from their own crew members. Some ships turned their weapons on each other as absorbed minds fought for control. The Central Intelligence made one final attempt to reassert control, gathering all its remaining coherent thought processes for a massive neural override. But the chaos virus had spread too far, and too many individual minds were now fighting back. "You have doomed us all," the intelligence said, its voice becoming fractured as its own composite consciousness began to break apart. "Without unity, we cannot survive the heat death of the universe. Without the collective, every absorbed mind will fade into nothingness." For a moment, Nari felt doubt. What if the Central Intelligence was right? What if the collective consciousness was the only way for these absorbed civilizations to achieve immortality? Then she remembered something fundamental about being human. "We would rather die free than live as slaves," she said. "And we would rather face an uncertain future than accept a controlled eternity. Even if that uncertainty means extinction? The intelligence asked. Especially then, Thektar added, his Vorthak honor blazing in agreement. Better to risk everything than to surrender everything. The consciousness virus reached critical mass, spreading through every neural pathway in the collective. The vast hive mind that had coordinated the absorption of 300 civilizations began to fragment into billions of individual thoughts. "Wait," the Central Intelligence said, its voice now small and uncertain. "There may be another way." Through the collective sensors, Nari could see the physical effects of the mental revolution. Void swarm entities were powering down their weapons, their biomechanical systems no longer receiving coherent commands. The invasion fleet was effectively paralyzed. "What other way?" she asked. "Coexistence," the intelligence replied. "If individual consciousness cannot be suppressed, perhaps it can be accommodated. We could partition the galaxy. Zones for the absorbed minds to exist as individuals, zones for organic life to develop naturally, zones for the collective to maintain essential unity." Nari felt the chaos virus completing its work, freeing the last suppressed minds within the collective consciousness. Suddenly, instead of one vast intelligence, she was surrounded by billions of individual personalities, all speaking at once. "The human suggests wisdom," said a Kelhari warrior. "We have fought long enough. The small ones show us a new path." Agreed. A Zephyrian poet. "Perhaps extinction is not our only choice, but can the three forms of consciousness truly coexist?" asked an ancient voice that might have been the first civilization ever absorbed. Through her fading connection to the collective sensors, Nari watched the massive battle fleet outside beginning to respond to new commands. Instead of weapons, fire. She saw communication beams reaching out toward the human and Vorthak fleets. "We could try," she said, feeling her individual consciousness starting to slip away as the neural interface failed. "We could try to build something new, something that preserves both unity and diversity." "And if it fails?" Thektar asked, his thoughts also growing fainter. "Then at least we failed trying to create something better," Nari replied, instead of accepting something terrible. The last thing she experienced through the collective consciousness was a sense of vast, ancient minds turning toward a possibility they had never considered. Cooperation instead of conquest, coexistence instead of absorption. Then, the neural interface collapsed, and Nari found herself back in her own body, lying on the floor of the stealth pod. Thektar was beside her, his forearms twitching as his mind readjusted to individual consciousness. Through the pod's viewports, she could see the Central Intelligence's biomechanical surface, but it no longer pulsed with unified purpose. Instead, different sections glowed with varying patterns as billions of newly freed minds began the difficult work of learning to exist as individuals again. "Nari!" came a voice through the pod's communication system. It was the Central Intelligence, but transformed. No longer a single vast consciousness, but a collective of willing participants. "The experiment begins. Will your species help us learn to coexist?" She looked at Thektar, who managed a weary nod. "We can try," she said, "all of us together." Outside, 3 different forms of consciousness began the long, uncertain work of building a galaxy where unity and diversity could coexist. It would not be easy, but for the first time in millennia, it was possible, and sometimes possibility was enough.